Hey guys, what's up? It's Monday, so it's time for yet another edition of the Breakfast Club. Please forgive me, by the way, for the state of this video. Because of circumstances beyond my control, I just could not make this a regular video, so hopefully this audio recording with the static image will not offend you too much. So, this particular topic I'm bringing up, it's one that I don't think I really have a definitive word on. I have strong opinions about what I'm about to talk about, but I can't really say okay, I am right and that's it. There's a lot of factors that I think really warrant some discussion. So I'll definitely leave the discussion to you guys, but I'm just going to state my piece on it and we go from there, I guess. So some of you guys who happen to focus more on the tech side of things may have heard about this, but for those of you who haven't, there's a man named Eric Lundgren. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But he basically runs an e-waste recycling business, and apparently he's an inventor as well, according to this news article that caught my attention. And what's interesting, the reason why I'm bringing him up is because recently he has been sentenced to 15 months in prison and I believe a $50,000 fine for what Microsoft claims is basically distributing pirated or counterfeit discs. Here's the story. Basically, he was doling out restore discs. And for those of you who don't know, basically whenever you get your hands on a laptop or a computer, you usually have a copy of Windows on disk or USB, usually discs. So the old days it usually were discs. And in case anything happened to your machine or your laptop or whatever, you need to reinstall Windows or you need to restore what the hard drive used to have before it went kaput. That restore disk will help you to, well, restore your machine. Now, what's interesting here is that he was distributing this software, and Microsoft was like, oh, hell no. And according to an official statement on it, after people found out about the sentencing, the reason why they were pressing charges and got the courts to basically side with them on this, the lawyers were, if I'm reading this correctly, they said that unlike most e-recyclers, Mr. Lundgren sought out counterfeit software which he disguised as legitimate and sold to other refurbishers. This counterfeit software exposes people who purchase recycled PCs to malware and other forms of cybercrime, which puts their security at risk and ultimately hurts the market for recycled products. So, they're basically saying that he was basically giving out counterfeit software as, legitimate products for those who wanted to recycle laptops, and that it was, since it was going to be putting customers at risk and it was doing malware and all this other BS, that's why they pushed the issue. And considering that, if I am reading this correctly, I believe some of the CDs the CDs he was giving out had official Microsoft stuff on, pressed on the disc. That definitely puts the guy in some hot water. I mean, you're kind of pushing it out as legitimate. But here's the rub. Here's where things get a little crazy. One, they're claiming that these discs were worth $25. And because he was doling these things out, they were missing out on $25. That's part of the reason why he had to pay that amount of money as part of his sentencing. But here's what's also hilarious. You know that software that they're claiming that he's pushing out as illegitimate and as counterfeit software? It's off of Microsoft's own website. And in fact, anybody here, this software that they claim is worth $25 per disc, anybody listening to this right now can go to Microsoft's website and download it for free. I'll repeat that for those of you who've never heard of this before, though if you're tech savvy or if you know much about computers and Microsoft, you already know about this. But that restore software, hell, even Windows itself, you can download off of Microsoft's websites for free. Yeah, let that sink in. And that software is what he had grabbed to put on the CDs himself to give out to people who wanted to continue to fix or continue to use old laptops. Now, Nathan Proctor, who's the director of USPIRG's Right to Repair, he issued this statement over Lundgren's sentencing, which I think hits at the heart of what's really going on with this court case, and this is where my ire begins to build up. He says, and quote, "Companies have gotten too aggressive in pushing us to throw things away and buy new things. What we should be doing instead is reusing more, repairing more, and recycling the rest. Ideas that Eric Lundgren has been pioneering." Unquote. This is a big deal, and I really do think that this is at the heart of the matter, especially when you consider that lately a lot of Microsoft's so-called official Windows laptop products are being built like cell phones are being built today. And those of you who've been messing around with cell phones long enough probably know what I'm about to get into. And it's basically the fact that cell phones are basically being made to be throwaway items, despite the fact that you're spending upwards of $500, $600, close to $1,000 sometimes on these freaking phones. And yet they want you to toss these things away when the next year's model pops out. And many of these high-end phones usually are built in such a way so that it's pretty hard to repair. And even basic stuff that we used to take for granted just a few years ago are really hard to do now, if not impossible, such as, I don't know, switching out the batteries when they no longer work. I happen to be using an HTC One. Old phone. Main reason why I'm still using it is because the freaking thing still works. Unlike many people out there, I don't really see the reason to grab a new phone every freaking year and continue to stay in debt by constantly paying the cell phone companies a fee. You're basically, paying partially for the phone price on top of the bill that you gotta pay. I'd rather not do that. I just buy my phones outright, usually on sale, or I'll buy an older model that was good the year prior, and I get to save my money, and I get to keep something that will work for several years. But even my strategy is not exactly perfect because, again, I'm using the HTC One, and despite the fact that it's still working just fine, in case any of you guys are wondering, it's the HTC One M9, to give you an idea of how old this phone is. Yeah, it's still working great, still holds the charge pretty well, still fairly fast, but since it's one of their high-end phones, I can't access the battery. So once the battery is no longer able to hold a charge, that's it. I gotta get a whole new phone. Despite the fact that the rest of the hardware still works great. And this is what Microsoft and other companies are trying to do with laptops now. So suddenly, it becomes a little bit more apparent why they would suddenly jump down Lundgren's throat if he's starting to sell older laptops and giving them software that can help them to keep it going. But the other thing that's kind of driving me nuts about this is the fact that they're trying to act like, oh my God, we're losing money with all these CDs that have the software on them. Well, they're losing money, but not in the way they're putting it. They're making it look like, they're putting out software that we sell, and it's $25 per disc, and this guy's just doling it out. No, they're not losing money there. They're losing money on the new laptops that they're trying to get people to get. Purchase. The software, they themselves, if you remember, are giving out for free. Because it's not the software they're selling you. It's the license to use it. This goes back to, the 90s. Hell, maybe even the late 80s. I remember being upset back in the 90s when I found out that video game companies and other software companies were basically telling people that products that they were paying for they didn't really own. This was back when physical media was still the main way to distribute software, either on floppy disks and then later on CDs and then DVDs. Especially during the 90s, it was pretty much like, there was still a lot of stuff in floppy disks were moving over to CDs. And by the way, CDs themselves are ridiculously cheap to manufacture, so it's not like they were losing a whole lot of money printing on these things. But they were, because they were so freaked out about piracy, extremely freaked out, despite the fact that their concern for piracy is way overblown. They basically made a point. Every time if you buy a video game or you get your hands on software, always look at that licensing agreement. And notice that's what it's called, a licensing agreement, not a purchasing agreement. This is a licensing agreement. And it will tell you point blank that you did not purchase the game. You purchased a license to be able to access and use that game according to certain limited parameters. So for instance, with a video game, you're allowed to access the game, you may be allowed to play the game the way they intend, but you can't make copies of it, you can't distribute it, you can't alter it, things like that. In some cases, they don't even want you to preserve it. Just ask anybody who wants to play an MMO that died years ago. There's just like, not you can't even make a free server to play this game that we're no longer making money on. The whole thing is based on the license. They always sell you the license, not the software itself. The software is just there for you to access. But they're like, no, you can't. We're not selling you the software because this is our intellectual property. You're not allowed to mess with it as if it's yours. For several fundamental reasons that I'll not get into here, that really pissed me off as a teenager. I'm an adult now, and I'm seeing how far they've pushed things. These days, these licensing agreements sometimes are getting very draconian. Especially now that these days they're trying to push less an idea of software that you're given access to, but now a service that you're getting access to, such as Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Premiere. That it seems to be going that route now. The whole service route, rather than here's a piece of software that you're able to use and keep permanently on your hard drive. It's the licensing that they're selling here. And Microsoft has been pushing this for years. Notice that if you put Windows on your machine, after you install it, before you even install it, you got to put that serial number in. That's the license. That's right there, proving that you got the official license. And they'll say, we have an official Microsoft registered product. If you don't put that in there, yeah, you'll be able to use it, but only in a limited fashion. You won't be able to change your desktop. You won't be able to access the Microsoft App Store or any other stuff that you may want to actually do with Windows, other than just basic stuff like browsing and running basic programs. So you need that. You need that serial number, and if you do it through legitimate means, you're going to be paying at the very least $100 freaking bucks just for the license. So that's where they're making their money. That's why they can give out the Restore software for free. Again, you can just download it and burn it onto your own CDs or DVDs or USB drives, which I did for my computer. No problem. They don't see no problem with that whatsoever because I've already purchased the license. But now that this guy's distributing it in a way so that people who have access to older machines who want to keep it running, they're asking for the Restore Disc. Well, here's a Restore Disc. Oh, hell no, we can't have that. We're trying to get these people to buy new shit. Let's sue this dude. And let's tell the courts that, hey, this software is worth a lot of money to us. It's $25 a disc. When they don't care about, they're not pricing the software, they're pricing the license for it. And the guy himself, when he's distributing these Restore keys, he's not handing it out with the licenses. He's just handing out the Restore software, which is useless to the people unless they have the licenses themselves. So he's not cutting into their market, at least not in the way that they're trying to make it look like he is. Now, if the judge or any people looking at this on the law side of things were tech savvy, they'd realize that. And they'd also point out, hey, wait a second, why are you trying to convince us to sentence this guy on a clause that goes against the very way you've run your business for the past, 3-4 decades now? But no, we don't have anyone tech savvy. Well, I shouldn't say we don't have anyone, but we have very few people who are tech savvy enough to realize this flaw in their legal argument. And so this poor sucker now has to spend 15 months in prison on top of having to pay a fine. Now, I'm not saying that he's not entirely at fault. There are some things about the case that, certain things that he did that are a bit questionable, at least as far as the legal side of things is concerned. I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, because I've looked at this in other sources, and it seems that he may have put official Windows stuff on the CDs themselves. That right there is a problem. And there are other factors involved, I think. But the fact of the matter is, Microsoft was arguing on a whole, the software is valuable, therefore he can't distribute it like this. That's how they were pushing it. And they're also claiming, this was going to open them up to malware. This is your own freaking software. Are you basically saying that your own software that's being distributed is going to open people up to malware? And of course, the judge was not savvy enough to realize the flaw in this. This is basically what happens when big businesses are basically able to abuse the court system like this. You end up sending people who are, doing what they think was a decent thing. They're offering a decent service to people who want to keep their old machines running. Now he's got to spend time in prison with people who've done much harsher crimes. All because businesses want to continue to maximize their profit to insane levels at the expense of the consumers that they're asking to get their money from. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. At least that's my opinion on it. I honestly think that we desperately need at this point people in government and people in the legal system who are tech savvy enough to not allow stuff like this to happen. You know, sending people to prison for stuff like this. This really, just no. And not only that, I honestly think that at this point we desperately need an overhaul of the copyright system, as well as the way software and electronics is being distributed, how it's being sold, how consumers are getting screwed over. I mean, when you are at the point where in order to continue this business, in order for these tech companies to continue running, you have to basically screw them. I'm going to sell them products that I don't want them to be able to use in a year. Yeah, I want to, sell, like, there's all types of stuff on the tech side of things that is full of scams like this. Selling you, selling you cell phones or laptops that you won't be able to open and repair yourself. They specifically make it so that if you go in there, if you're tech savvy enough to try to be able to do some basic fixes, they set it up so that if you try to open it up, not only does it void your warranty, you might have accidentally broken something because of the way they put it together, specifically so that you won't try to open it. If it breaks, just buy a new one. Cough up another $500. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. What about the freaking printing industry? Now, basically, they're overcharging you for ink. And many times when you have to go out and buy a new ink cartridge, you still have ink in the cartridge you got. And what about the fact that they also tend to, every time they update the drivers, this has actually been proven, some people are, giving drivers that are specifically designed to make the hardware it goes on work worse. Printers, suddenly they're having problems printing right. Time to buy another printer! Or time to get some more ink. My phone seems to be running slow. Time to get a new one. My laptop seems to be creeping along. Time to get a new one. Creative, the guys who used to make the it was Creative. They make sound cards. I remember them in a whole controversy a while back, trying to sue a guy for giving out, making updated drivers for hardware they no longer sold, for people who still wanted to continue to use that hardware, old sound cards that still worked great. He made his own updated drivers, put it out for free. Oh, you can't do that, because they wanted to get people to buy all the new shit. It's like all these constant schemes to trick the consumers into coughing up more dough and constantly tossing away stuff that could work perfectly fine. I'm sure some people are going to be giving some counter arguments to my own opinion, and since I am not saying that I have, the ultimate truth on this, I could be wrong about a few things here. Maybe there's something that I'm not getting. Maybe this is not solely motivated by greed. I could be wrong about this, but you gotta admit, there is a little too much shadiness going on in the tech industry these days. And somebody who's simply giving out restore discs with software that you can easily get for free, that they're giving you for free themselves, someone like that doing that should not have to go to jail for 15 freaking months just because these people want to squeeze a few more extra coins out of you. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. There really is. But I don't know, that's just me. I ranted long enough. This wasn't supposed to be close to 20 minutes, but, hopefully you guys got something out of it, and maybe you guys will point out something I didn't know. Take care, guys, and I'll catch you guys later.